everybody, to Good Path Podcast. I'm excited that you're tuning in today. I am also excited that I have a great friend here to talk with. Connie Jakab is joining me today, and I've known Connie for, I think, over about 20 years. And we've worked in the same region here in the Lower Mainland and the same family of churches in years past. And I just really feel a kinship for the things that she's passionate about. And so just by way of a little bit of an introduction of who Connie is, she's the CEO of the Jakab Co, author and speaker and a culture creator. She works with other culture creators to see their dreams come to fruition, as well as helping schools and workplaces and homes design connected cultures that bring people to life. And when I think about Connie, I think about somebody who's very generous in spirit. I think about inclusion and welcome and empathy and belonging. She really sees people. She lives out her faith in Jesus and really believes in people and calls out people's unique giftedness. And so I'm really excited to have her here. And so welcome, Connie. Great to have you.
Thanks, Chad. I feel so seen. Wow.
Good. Good. Well, it's awesome to have you here, and really excited to chat with you about some of the things you're doing and some of the things that are on your heart. And I know some of the things that we share in common in terms of just passion. But before we dive into that, how are you? How's life in Calgary?
Well, life is good. I mean,
Yeah.
we have no snow right now, so life is really good.
Awesome. That's good. Are you a Calgary Flames fan?
I am. Is that okay to admit?
Yo, 100%.
I
This is a safe
stayed a
space.
Flames fan even when I lived in BC.
Yeah.
I stayed true.
Good for you. Yeah. Well, I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
Okay. So does that change anything? Can we
We
still?
can still be friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. But I'm living out here in Vancouverville and maintaining my faithfulness to the Oilers. So maybe we share that in common before when you were here. But anyhow, can I ask you a fun question to get to know you a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know you're not Catholic, but there's been a new pope elected, right? Pope Leo. And so here's a question. If by chance you were ever selected to be the next pope, who would you name yourself after?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Could be anybody.
It could be anybody.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be like, yeah.
Doesn't
Because,
have to.
like they name themselves like somebody they want to emulate or be known to be like or something like that. But,
Yeah, even though it's a guy,
mm-hmm.
I would Brendan Manning. Yeah, that would be my jam.
Brendan Manning.
Change it to like Bernadette or something.
Right. Yeah. So any specific work that Brendan Manning has done, books or anything that's really special to you?
Oh, I really love his book, Ragamuffin Gospel. I
Yeah.
feel like that resonates so deeply with me and
Yeah.
the people who I genuinely love deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm actually not surprised to hear you call out that. That's awesome. Great. Okay. Well, you are doing a lot of cool stuff. One area I'm really interested in is you work with schools and parents, and I don't know, maybe tell me, is this a method that you've developed or learned called the Bravely Connected method that you work with schools who are experiencing children who have challenges with behavior or mental health problems and parents in the same who are struggling with their kids in maybe some similar ways. Can you can you tell us a bit about that? What is the Bravely Connected method that you're doing with parents and schools?
It's probably it is something that I created out of 25 years of working with the vulnerable sector. And
Okay.
then what we went through in our own house with our oldest son with anxiety and depression and opposition and ADHD and hospitalization when he was 8. He's now 18. That was 10 years ago. I can't believe it. And I think I wrote a book called Bring Them Closer, of
Mm-hmm.
just all the steps that I took to help him in those seasons of his
Mm.
life, and noticed that it was resonating with people, noticed that it was resonating in my own house, that everything that I was trying was working with
Mm.
him. I mean, when I say working, I mean
Yeah.
10 years
Yeah.
of mess.
I'm sure there was a lot of different approaches you were kind of trying out or along that journey.
Very much, because I feel like I had to really unlearn my upbringing in order to parent him. Being a Gen Xer, being someone who didn't have any emotional understanding at
Mm.
all, being very authoritarian,
Mm.
discipline oriented, which isn't bad, but When I brought him to the hospital, the psychologist had asked me, "What do you do when your son is raging?" Because that's where he was at that time in his life. He was raging.
And he wasn't
And
very old at that point, right?
no, he was only 8.
Yeah.
So grade 3.
Yeah.
And I mean, for that little body to not really know how to process what was going on for him, it was hard. But I was trying to parent him the way I was parented, and that wasn't working. And she said, "You don't send the hurting away from you, you bring them closer."
Hmm.
And I felt like I didn't understand what she was talking about. I thought, man, get this kid on some meds,
Yeah.
get him a counselor, and somebody, for heaven's sakes, pray for him.
Yeah. Right.
The holy trinity of mental health. And when he came home from the hospital 3 weeks later with a counselor, with medication, with prayer, it didn't stop. It continued. And so the Bravely Connected method has come out of what did bringing him closer look like?
Hmm.
And what have I noticed brings people closer when I'm working in schools? Like, what would bring a classroom closer? Or right now in my community, what brings a community closer? It's really a 5 step model for interpersonal relationships to
Okay.
be able to feel connected.
Okay. So it can relate to any kind of like interpersonal conflict or connection at all,
Absolutely.
right? But you're specializing in parenting and classroom environments primarily with your coaching and your seminars.
Yeah, mostly. And I'd love to see that develop into communities because now I'm playing around with that with my community and realizing, oh, people want to be connected, but there's a lot of interesting dynamics there too. But up till now, it has just been primarily for schools, teachers, students, parents.
Yeah. And I guess like you said, like it kind of flies in the face of maybe years past where we would tell people to go sit in the corner and go to your room by yourself, kind of go learn your lesson and come back when you're ready to behave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are those 5 steps that you are trying to teach?
Well, the first one is learning how to attune to myself before I can manage anyone around me or manage the anxiety that they bring into a room or anything that they're struggling with. I need to attune in. So I teach people
Hmm.
a 3 step process on how do I emotionally regulate myself, manage myself, and understand myself so that I can respond rather than react.
Hmm.
And then the second step is how do I get underneath that child or that person's behavior? How do I move from my reactive brain to being empathetic? And so I have a 3 step um, way of doing that. Then we move into how we can move past control and become powerful. A lot of people think powerful means overbearing or authoritarian, but it actually is I'm going to manage me and I'll be safe here for you. I'll be your bottom hands.
Hmm.
um, the fourth step is belonging creates resilience. So, how do we create real, true belonging? And then the last one is how resilience is really found in how we repair, not in how well we do all this, because we're going
Right.
to fumble around.
Right.
And so it's how do we come together when we've had a rupture?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really important, isn't it?
Hmm.
Because this isn't like something you just like plug and play. Yeah. Yeah. We all bring our stuff. I know as a parent, um, I often tell people I thought I was a pretty good person, and then I got married, and then I realized I have some things to work on, and then I had kids, and I realized I'm worse than I thought before, because
Totally.
it like it just forces you to be so otherish, and kind of die to yourself. I mean, a lot, right? But I found parenting to, and I mean, still parenting, but when my kids were younger, it was very overwhelming, and I just felt so many emotions coming up, and that control piece comes up because I'm like, hey, I'm the adult, I'm in charge, you have to listen to me, and I'm going to make you. And I used to think that you could make people do what you wanted them to do, and if you were a good parent, that meant your kids did whatever you wanted. And I realized if that's going to be my goal, I'm going to crush my kids.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I that's not an option. Like, I'm not going to like. But I feel like that was kind of hardwired into my mind that no, they need to bend to the adult. And I realized that's maybe not what they need. And maybe maybe I've got some things going on in me that I need to think about. Have you ever felt that in your journey?
Oh, I am nodding my head at you because that is it right there. I feel like relationships are our biggest mirror, and I think that's why they're so hard. That's actually why I call it being bravely connected, because
Hmm.
I can run after connection, but it's brave to do that. It's really refreshing to hear this from a male, to be
Hmm.
honest. I don't I hear this a lot from females, but to hear you talk about it in this way, I think that we need to talk about it more, and the bravery that it takes to be willing to allow ourselves to look in that mirror and to make
Hmm.
adjustments. Like that's the brave part. I think the bravest thing I've ever done is face myself, because it's wasn't always pretty. Still isn't pretty.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard when you're talking to parents. How do you help them face themselves when they don't like what they see?
Yeah, because shame, I think as a parent, like you said, we have our measurables. Like if they listen to me, then I'm a good parent.
Hmm.
Or if my children behave when I'm out in public, I'm a good parent.
Yeah.
We all have our standard of measurement we're holding ourselves to, and then when we don't reach that, there's shame. And I feel like parents carry a lot of shame. I did. I still do when I mess up.
Hmm.
But when my boy was suffering, I thought, wow, what kind of
Hmm.
mother am I to have my
Right.
son being in such a low place?
Right.
And I feel like parents need to understand that our kids are in a different world, that it is a lot of cultural things going on. Like our culture is sick,
Hmm.
therefore our children are sick.
Hmm.
And if we're brave enough to face ourselves and just kind of tell shame to sit down and just wait over there,
Hmm.
I really think that's the call for parents right now, to understand it's not that you're a bad parent. It's that our world is different and we need different skills to raise our kids in this interesting world we're in.
Yeah, it's like you're telling shame, which is the thing that the parent is experiencing. And that sort of seems like maybe that is that the barrier that the parent needs to put down so that they can attend to the children. Because we get in our own way, right? We have our own stuff that we're carrying, and then we can't really think about, okay, well, what's going on for my child?
Totally. And we get stubborn. I do. The older I
Right.
get, the more stubborn I'm getting. I'm like, man, I'm turning into that older woman. Like, I never thought that would happen.
I'm that person.
I'm that person.
Oh man, I feel that too. I feel that too. Who's that crusty old guy?
Like, I don't get these memes. What are these
Yeah.
children doing? I don't understand the way they think.
What do you seeing in culture that you're hoping parents will be aware of in order to attend to their children's unique needs in this kind of generation?
Oh, there's so many things. I know a lot of people peg things on screens, and I think that that's a huge part of
Mhm.
it. We've become less personal and more technology based, and interestingly enough, a lot of our mental health issues have gone up since then. But there's other things too, like even just poverty issues, and not necessarily people who are poor, but people like myself who are working, and the balance of I have to make a living, but I also have a child that's needing my full attention right now. How do I manage that? How do I
Mm,
manage needing to provide and being present for my kids? Like, so
yeah.
that's huge. I think that the polarization of our world right now plays a huge role. The fact that when I scroll on my Instagram, my algorithm is so vastly different than my boys.
Mm,
What they're seeing, they're like, everyone's seeing this, mom. I'm like, no, I'm not seeing that.
right.
So we're even we used to watch the same TV shows, the Cosby Show after school. We'd all sit down and watch it together. Whereas
Right.
now our algorithms are separating us too,
Yeah.
and we have a stressed out culture. I read a stat that we actually live about 70% of our day as adults in the limbic system of our brain, that reactive part. And I thought, well, no wonder these poor kids are stressed, because the vibe we're giving off
Mm,
is constant
hmm.
tension.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, it's wild to think that in our world now, like you can't assume that anyone else is like exposed to the same information or the same assumptions about reality that you are. And I think that's a big deal, right? Like you said, like your child is sort of living in a different, almost a different reality based on what they're seeing. And the assumption is that, well, everybody sees this and you think the same. And so no, no wonder people are polarized, and even more so between parents and kids in the same home. Yeah, we've worked pretty hard not to let our kids have much screen time, but it's always a battle. And I know for a lot of parents, it's a real struggle because of the world we live in and the expectations of being connected all the time. What does it look like for you? Like when you're talking about connection and helping people be connected, what does that look like in daily life, in a home, in a family, in a relationship?
Well, I know, like growing up, it seems like that's all we had was face to face.
Mm,
And if there was a problem, you'd sit down, you'd eat together, you'd figure it out. Whereas now we have all these interesting ways around communication. And there's an increase in passive aggressiveness, putting things off, not talking directly. But for me, one of the biggest things that I work in is this little term called interpersonal neurobiology, how attunement rewires the brain. And in our mental health world, everyone is, like emotional regulation and wellness and, spend time and do your stretching and, meditate or do, your reading or whatever you're doing. But those are all individualistic practices I'm finding
right.
in mental health. Whereas attunement rewiring the brain means that I need to connect with someone to get my brain rewired. And we all have had experiences of our life that shape, if you pretend my fingers are neural pathways of our brain, it's literally wired certain neural pathways together. And I can pray and they're still fired together. I mean, I
Mm,
do believe in miracles, so it's possible, but I can't recite affirmations or do anything to get these undone other than being in relationship with someone who truly sees me and is helping me make sense of my story, and that's when those neural pathways start to come apart
mm,
and new neural pathways start to come together. And so getting people in the room is the biggest challenge. But then when they're in the room, how do we
mhm,
get them to connect on a level that rewires brains and doesn't have arguments and
mm,
all kinds of defensive self-protection behaviors because we're absolutely scared spitless of each other now.
mm. Wow. So just physical proximity is big. And then once you're in the room is like learning how to actually like talk to each other. Is that basically what you're saying?
Absolutely. And then what does that look like? Like with a teenage boy, for example, I have two. Sometimes that isn't getting face to face like this because that's intimidating. It might be more driving and going
Mm,
to get some food because sitting next to each other for them is a little less threatening, but having
right.
that connection.
Yeah. I feel like my wife is better at like getting into the heart of a conversation with my kids than I. They're all female, but I don't think I can chalk it all up to that. But I do find it challenging because it's easy to get one word answers and it's easy to get no, 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 and it takes work to dig into the heart of things and find out, have more than that kind of an interaction.
Yeah.
You know, like this work you're doing in building connection, it's come out of your own life experience, right? I feel from you like this real heart for those who are not included, like those who are on the outside, and you wanting to bring them in. And you're reaching into like lots of different areas and trying to bring people in. Does that come from personal experience as well? What's been your experience of belonging? Have you always felt like you belonged, or does that come from personal experience, that desire to help people belong?
I believe so. I mean, for me, I've always felt a little outside the circle myself, being
Mm,
in school, being bullied for being a heavier girl.
mm,
That forms certain belief systems. So it was never really part of, what I thought was being in. It was always like the ugly duckling, the big girl on the side. Always been a little quirky in the
mm,
sense of always been more of an entrepreneurial type of pioneer, a little bit of a different soul.
mm,
And so when you're young and you're like that, it's a little, people don't really know how to relate to you. So always feeling a little outside that way. And then the mentors that I had, they
mm,
always cared about people who were a little different too.
mm,
My youth leader um, really cared about the drug dealer and the person on the street. And
mm,
so I feel like with all these experiences being young, like say under 20, by the time I hit 20, I just knew in my heart that the people who are on the outside of the circle, I want to make sure they feel like they belong. And interestingly enough, as I did that, I felt like, oh, if you create belonging, then you do belong. And then
Mm,
in the last 10 years of my life, I've discovered that belonging doesn't come from people at all. It actually comes from knowing that we already belong. And that's actually
mm,
where my little tattoo comes from. I was just sitting on my couch one morning having my time with God, and He just spoke directly to my heart and said, You belong everywhere
mm,
you go
mm,
because you just belong. It's your
mhm,
birthright. It's not
mm.
something you have to earn from people, it's just yours.
Yeah,
And that blew me away. And I knew it in my head, but it really hit my heart that day.
yeah, that's beautiful. Um, I, I don't know if you're still doing much dance. Are you still involved with hip hop and dance circles?
So yes, I actually started a class in my community.
Yeah,
And anytime I can bring dance into a way to experience belonging, I do. I
yeah,
bring it to workplaces or
yeah,
school assemblies have shifted. Now that's what I do. I use movement.
yeah,
Yeah. So I love dance.
yeah.
And for my 50th birthday, I battled 50 people.
Oh,
And I lived to tell the tale.
nice. That's a lot of that's a lot of moving. Because when you're saying people who are in the circle or outside the circle, that's immediately what I thought of is seeing you do these dance circles. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're trying to accomplish with what those dance circles are.
Well, it was pretty wild. So over the last 20 years of teaching dance in schools, I would often at the end of the class form a circle. I would say grade eights were my favorite to do this with because they would just sweat when I would say everyone's going to have an opportunity to go into the middle of the circle to dance. And I started to notice what would create people uh, to have the bravery to go in the middle and what would shut it down.
Hmm.
And I never went into this thinking this is going to be a social experiment to discover that, but it just naturally came out. And so that's what I do now in these assemblies is all we're going to do is deeply notice what creates bravery and what creates anxiety. And what was so interesting was never the fact that the goal was never to get everyone in the middle. The goal was to notice who would go in the middle. And who often went in the middle were these kids with severe anxiety.
Hmm.
Teachers would come up to me after and say, We don't understand how that just happened. That kid never engages. That kid's been hospitalized. They've been diagnosed. Or it was always the kids who were seemingly outside of the circle in school were the ones that would go into the middle of these circles, fearless and free. And it became this incredible learning opportunity for all of us to notice and witness this, what felt like a miracle.
Hmm.
And what I noticed was that when there was people leaning in, people weren't running away from each other, when there was just the willingness to stay in the circle and support someone, they became brave. And I've never seen the opposite happen. It's happened for 20 years, and it just
Hmm.
blows my mind every time.
That's really cool because I think I would experience anxiety like right now if you told me, "Hey, Chad." Like I was when you said that, I'm like, "What would I even do? I don't even know. I'm not a dancer, right?" But I can. I've been in environments where like all of a sudden you feel like your inhibitions like go away. Like whether you're at a concert in like this crowd where everyone's just like jiving together and you're like, I'm not worried about what people are thinking of me, or I'm just free to connect with what's going on. It's a really good feeling. But how much more so when people are like cheering me on specifically? Because that's what you do, right? That person gets in and everyone's just like calling out, like, yeah, like I don't know, is that what you do? I can't remember.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and when people are willing to do that, they're letting go of their own inhibitions. Like, they might not go in the middle, but even to cheer feels
yeah,
vulnerable because
right.
you're in an environment that feels awkward, and I love using dance because everybody is on that same level of feeling awkward. But if you can think about, yeah, the other times when you feel like you've stepped out of your comfort zone and you have felt that inhibition and just like, I'm going to go for it. Like, what were the conditions around you? I mean,
Mm,
sometimes we just do it and we do it alone because we have to.
hmm.
But even that came from somewhere. The resilience to be able to do that came from something giving you that resilience. And so being curious about that and then how
Mm,
do we create that in groups? And
right.
How do we create that in communities and schools and churches?
Yeah.
That's kind of I love being curious about that.
Yeah. And it's like, what makes people brave enough to be comfortable in their own skin and make other people feel comfortable in their own skin and accepted just for who they are? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is it? What's the secret sauce, Connie? It's connection, it's belonging. Just give me the bottom line here.
Well, I used to think that the group created that for that person. And I
Mm,
still believe that. It's this weird chicken and egg thing. But if you have, say, you have 30 people and 25 of them feel they have to self protect, there isn't high trust.
mm,
There's a lot of not there's a lack of psychological safety. The ability to create a circle like that is low.
yeah.
But if you
Okay.
have 30 people who at least, 20 of them have come in with a sense of resilient belonging inside of themselves,
Mm,
then there's this ability to create that.
mm,
So it's kind of like the group creates belonging, but the individuals coming into that, there needs to be a level of belonging resilience within
right.
them
Right.
just to stay in the circle.
So that's when you talk about culture.
Yeah.
You're talking about that being like you're building a dominant posture in the culture.
Yes. Yeah, it is building that culture, and it's being the culture creators and teaching people how do you create culture, because I can never predict what's going to happen. I come in there and I mean it can go south, and then that's a learning too. But what's beautiful is when people realize how simple this actually is, and when they see it happen, it reminds them actually the level of bravery and the limiting anxiety we can have in our
Mm,
spaces. I mean, it's possible.
hmm. Yeah. And it's beautiful when you see it and when you experience it. What do you think are the biggest barriers for people in connection? I think we've talked about like their own insecurity or their own shame. Are there other things that people might not be aware of? Like when they're thinking about their own life and their own frustrations with relationships, what are some things that maybe we could be more aware of that maybe don't come to mind when we think of building connection with one another?
I think our people tolerance has lessened. We don't have to tolerate people anymore. If
Mm,
I don't like you, I'll just block you. If I don't want to see your face anymore, I just won't go back to the same place that you're in. We've really become avoidant, and so we need to build up our people tolerance again. To be able to be in the same rooms of people we don't agree with, that we don't
mm,
like, and know how to handle that awkward space.
mm,
Yeah, I feel like that's a big one, especially after COVID. I mean, and I'm one of them. Like if I cannot people today, I will not people
mm,
today. Like I look
mm.
extroverted, but I'm actually a closet introvert.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. You can be very selective on how many and what people you connect with when it's digital. I was talking about a negative interaction I had with somebody and talking through the scenario, and they said, well, why didn't you just ask them what was going on for them during that interaction instead of starting to tell a story in myself in my own head and then maybe just like disengaging, just saying, what are you like, I'm feeling this, are you feeling something too? And just like, I'm like, oh wow, I could do that. Like I could build a bridge because I'm worried that I would say something to offend them or like be rude to them. But it's much easier to just sit. Well, I guess I'm not going to talk to that person.
Yeah. So much easier.
Yeah.
And yet, isn't it true? I feel like we don't know how to have those conversations anymore. I don't know if we ever did because I was a kid.
Right.
Maybe when I don't know if people adulted better back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, but I do feel like the chances for braver conversations is there.
Mm-hmm.
I do teach a way to communicate when we're in those awkward situations, to understand like I felt anxious when you had said that, and what I thought in my head was I don't want to say anything because I'm going to mess it up. And
Mm-hmm.
so my behavior was just to isolate and back off.
Mm-hmm.
And then that becomes a way of my own self awareness. Now I'm aware of my thoughts, I'm aware of my emotion, and I'm aware of my behavior. And I can communicate it in a way where someone can have empathy, hopefully.
Right.
Well, I had no idea you were thinking that or feeling that.
Mm-hmm.
It opens up the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a journey, isn't it? Like the self awareness and the self reflection to to gain these skills? It takes a while, doesn't it?
It does, and to be honest, sometimes, like, I don't know about for you, but for me, having to be forced into it to make my family work,
Right.
it was do or die. Learn these skills or lose your kid.
Right.
Whereas I think when the stakes aren't high, it can almost it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Going to the gym, that first time back at the gym is horrible.
Yeah.
So building up the resilient skills enough, but I
Hmm.
think right now it would be important for us all to understand that in our culture, it is quite urgent that we learn these things and or at least just be willing to.
Yeah. Not to get political, but you live in a province that wants to disconnect from the rest of Canada right now.
It's like,
Is that true, or is it?
oh, I mean, I think it's 33%. I could be wrong. Please don't quote me on that. It's not everybody.
But
But
it's
yeah,
that's significant.
it's significant. There's enough of
Hmm.
people that would like to, for sure.
Yeah. So there's a case in point right there. How do we connect and stay connected?
Yeah, and religion and politics, I mean, those are
Hmm.
the 2 things that can disconnect someone in a sentence.
I wanted to ask you. You're also doing some work with your Dream Academy, and you're helping women reach their goals and dreams. And you've been on your own journey of the whole world of parenting and marriage and family, but also you've been very busy with projects and actively pursuing your own dreams and vocation. You've been able to accomplish a lot. What would you say to some moms out there who feel like they're losing themselves in their demands of life and parenting? What do you say to them to encourage them to keep going? If they're worried that they're losing themselves and feel like their dreams are getting pushed to the side.
Because that's pretty common. I
Yeah.
know for even for myself, absolutely. I think it's important for women to keep finding what brings you joy. We live in a weird world where it's almost like whatever you do has to be amazing and
Mm,
big. And I think we need to back that up and go, where do you feel the most delight?
mm,
And where do you feel the most joy? Because that's probably where you make your greatest contribution. And for some, that's their family. For some, that's their family and something else. And finding that is so important for a woman. When women rise up and do something that brings them joy, everyone around them benefits. Their
mm,
family benefits, their their immediate circle benefits. And it's amazing what gets awakened inside of them. And so I feel like just find that joy spot
mhm,
and go for it. And don't worry if it's big or grand, if it's going to get social media attention. I mean, I think we just need to throw all these expectations away. Don't even worry about it if it's philanthropic or I can't say the word today, or if it's giving back. Maybe it's just for you. Maybe it's literally going for a run and learning how to run a marathon or a 5K. Like, I think that a woman who comes alive inside of herself in whatever way that looks is a good thing for society.
mm. Do you feel like it's changing? Like, do you feel like there's more permission for that, or do you feel that that's still a challenge for women to feel the permission to think about themselves and do what brings them joy?
I think it's innate in us that we lay down ourselves for our families. I mean, I'll always put my family first
Mm,
before myself to my detriment.
mm,
Something I think most women have to work on.
mhm,
But I am not the woman who will sit there and go, "Man, we still live in this man's world." And it's like, man, there are women who paid for my rights to do what I do. I'm gonna live it up. I'm not
mm,
gonna waste one moment of their sacrifice because
mm.
if we think we have it bad, we do not. And I'll say something a little controversial. I actually feel a little bit more sorry, not sorry, but I'm a little bit more concerned about the world for white men right now,
Mm,
that we've now shifted it. I remember my oldest son when he was 12, he got in the car after school and he said, "I hate feminism." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he says to me, like, "Mom, like, I'm not against you having your rights. Just don't strip me of mine to get them."
mm.
And we live in this really weird world where in order for me to have my rights, you can't have yours
Right.
anymore. And I feel like, again, as a woman, like I'm going to go for it. and I'm going to do my thing. I don't often even remember that I'm female. I just go. That might sound weird. See
No.
what I mean? Quirky. But I just do it. Whereas I notice who's outside of the circle right now are women who maybe don't remember that they have every right to now. But then I also see that there are people being stripped of their rights, and not just white men, but the minorities, which we're starting to see a change in. I think that it's important for us to make sure that everybody feels like they're welcome to live their purpose and their life.
Yeah. It's kind of like this zero sum thinking that there's only a limited amount of rights in the world or a limited amount of belonging, or that we have to divvy it up. Like for you to have rights means that I need to have less, or vice
Mhm.
versa, which is not true. I guess that the pendulum, hey, like the pendulum swing of being aware of inequality or being aware of lack of inclusion can put us on a pendulum swing. Do you feel like that's happening, or do we swing back and forth, or are we on a pendulum swing somewhere in that regard with inclusion of whatever type of minority?
I guess it depends on where in society we're
Mm,
talking. I feel like in workplaces we're doing much better.
mm,
I don't see, I'm seeing an increase of minority leaders in faith communities, which is
mm,
great, which I think that's long overdue. Definitely seeing the people rising up to write books and start business. So I
mm,
am seeing things get better, but I do feel that with every time we, and again, this is such a belonging conversation, I need to be so secure in my own belonging that when somebody comes in and rolls in and they're different than me, they're a different sex than me, they're a different race than me, I'm not thinking, you're stealing from me. No, they're not.
mm,
There's enough. There's
mm,
enough for both of us in the room. And I might
mm,
need to, again, the only person who can manage me is me. I need to check myself and work on, okay, well, what's my controllable here? What's uncontrollable? And what am I going to do about that?
mm. It's good. You're planting a church right now. Is that an accurate statement to say?
That is accurate. Yeah, we're 1 year old.
1 year old Ogden Community Church. Yeah.
That's right.
Awesome. Tell me about that. When did that start, and how long have you been thinking about that? And tell us about your church.
Oh boy. Well, I wasn't thinking about it at all. I just stumbled upon it. We had this building in my community being built by the Mustard Seed, which in Calgary has been a homeless shelter since I was a youth.
Mm-hmm.
But they wanted to build a 24 unit affordable housing unit for families. And they did it right in our community in the midst of all these bungalows. And our community does not like that kind of change.
Mm-hmm.
And it was up in arms, first thinking, oh, it's homeless. Second of all, it's this massive monstrosity. And so they were giving free tours. And I thought, well, I'm going to go check it out, see what they're doing. And went on the tour, found out it was for families. So that's wonderful. This is great. And we get down to the main room and they say, we are really praying that there will be a church here that will be about the community of Ogden. And my heart starts to burn. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 I don't do this. Because again, where I have felt outside the circle is in church ministry because I don't think church culture probably at all. And I have often felt like, no, 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 your ideas, Connie, they're a little too out there. And that might be some story that I tell myself as well, because the evidence isn't always there the way I see, the way I'm telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the story that I've been in. And so when the idea of taking this on, plus starting a church in my own community where I grocery shop, where my kids, are themselves on the street, where people know me, and where religion has wounded so many people here, and there is so much diversity here, I thought this is going to be a hot mess. And this could literally blow up my family. It could blow up my life.
Hmm.
There's a lot of risk with what we're doing.
What do you see the risk being there?
So we really thought, okay, well, if it's for the community of Ogden, then I told my church friends, please don't come. Don't
Mm,
come to this church. It's not the new church to come to. This church is
right.
for Ogden. But that meant, inviting all kinds of different beliefs into the room. It meant LGBTQ in the room. It meant just a huge melding pot of people.
Hmm.
And so we have been able to navigate up till now, having Muslims, agnostics, atheists, queers, gays, Christians, all in one room and trying to figure out what does it look like to take a journey of faith without being imposing or
Mm,
prescriptive,
mm,
invitational of
mm,
just, okay, well, what does this look like for you?
mhm.
And so, talking about feeling like it's brave for me to our Pentecostal denomination or to a church, they might go, well, is that even like allowed? Like, is that even
Mm,
evangelical now? What is
mm.
that? So on one side, I feel pressure, like Paul did from Peter when he came,
Right,
checked out what he was doing. It's like, whoa, maybe this should be a little bit more churchy.
right.
But from the other side of people who are outside that circle, feeling like, no, no, we need this because where are we going to go? We
Yeah,
can't go anywhere else. We don't want to go anywhere else.
yeah,
And so, and a lot of the work that we have to do around this is trust building, reconciliation, restoration, and really coming back to maybe what I truly think the gospel is. Just feels very brave and vulnerable.
yeah. 100%. That's so cool. It is brave because there's probably faces and names in your mind of people that you know might be disappointed or disapproving, and that takes bravery to move forward anyway.
Yeah. What keeps me going is I keep thinking, well, anyone who's in the circle of faith, they have places they can go. We got an amazing Victory Church 2 blocks away from us. We have the church I grew up in 2 blocks away from us. They're great. So there's lots of places for
Right.
people who are inside the
Yeah.
circle,
Yeah.
but there's very few places for people who feel outside.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow.
Like that gives me courage. I'm like, it's worth it for them.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So what does it look like to go to church at Ogden Community Church with Muslims and queers and atheists?
Oh, it's so awesome. I gotta say, I am
Yeah.
loving this. So we eat. We eat together, we have a little potluck, and then we share, a thought. I show a visual every week of a circle with a cross in the middle, and there's dots everywhere, and there's dots in the corner. It's like, where are you on your faith journey? Are you in
Mm,
the corner as far away as possible? Or are you right there in the middle of that circle, right there next to the cross? Where are you? You're all
mm,
welcome.
mhm.
And so after we share what I call a thought, we just discuss around the table. What does that look like for you? Our goal, one of our rules, and this feels a little vulnerable, is we say we'll never tell you what you should believe here, but we will tell you our lived experience. We will share our own faith journey.
Mhm.
I'll share with you how I'm working out my walk with God.
Mhm.
We're just very raw and real.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. We had 6 baptisms on Easter Sunday. People were like,
Oh.
"Yeah, you know what? If this is Jesus, then we're in."
Hmm.
And it's had no coercion to it, which has been really beautiful. Some on the outside of the circle might say, no, it's a little Jesus-y. So it's interesting when you're dealing with a spectrum, how some people might perceive it all. But there's no agenda other than to walk with people
Hmm.
in where they are at right now in their faith and where they would like to be.
Hmm.
And I do believe that God woos people with his love.
Mhm.
And so it's been really neat to watch him do that.
Hmm. And so that, I imagine that's an interesting space to be in where it's like open, it's not coercive or prescriptive, is what you're saying. Yet, is there a vision in mind that you have of where you're hoping people um, will will go in terms of their faith and um, their I want to say beliefs, but I mean that in a holistic way, not just what they think in their brain, but what's true, but what they experience in life and where they go with their life.
Hmm. I
Like, are
mean,
you? I mean, obviously, you have a hope for them. And what's your vision for the people who come to your church?
well, I would hope that they feel that they are loved where they
Mhm.
are, and that when they allow themselves to be known by God, that they would find out who he really is,
Mm. Mhm.
and not who they have seen him as or who they've thought
Yeah.
him to be, but
Yeah.
really truly experience who he actually is. Um, and in a way that's understandable to them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, way to go. Way to be courageous, Connie.
This one's a tough one.
Is this an independent church plant? Are you connected with any other fellowship of churches?
I mean, because I'm ordained with POC, it's connected that way. I've been very hesitant to sign any actual papers planting us somewhere because right now I'm really hoping that someone will adopt us just because I'm seeing the need for that. And I'm a big kingdom partner type of person. I don't like to do things on my own. I'm not a maverick rogue
Right.
agent. So just been really working through that.
Yeah. Good. That's great. So, Connie, one final kind of question to ask. Is there a thread that connects the different projects you're involved in or have been engaged in? And how do you tie all of these things together? What's the piece that you feel is tying this all together?
I really feel that what has tied even all the years of what I've done, the different projects, who I write to, what I do, everything kind of comes back to this idea of how do I spark brave belonging in others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Really thankful for what you're doing, Connie, and just want to say, like, there's a few people that I know who I kind of look to as forging a way that needs to go. That the rest of us need to be. How do I say this? There's a few people like you who are forging a way that's not easy, but you're making a path for others to follow that I think is really important. So thanks for doing what you're doing, and I really just hope that you are experiencing God's joy as you go. I know it's hard and I know there's good days and bad days, but I just really wish you all the best and that you have strength for the days and that picture you have of the outsiders in the circle, belonging, finding a home. I picture heaven. I picture the city of God where the gates are never shut and all are welcome to come and be a part of God's good life. I hope that inspires and encourages you to keep going in the hard days. And yeah, so thanks so much for coming to talk.
Oh, thank you for having me, Chad. You're definitely someone who I am very grateful for all you're doing out there too.
Awesome. Okay, well, oh, and people can connect with you online. You have a couple different places people can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Social. I mean, I've made it easy. It's just my name. My son said, "How narcissistic are you?" It's actually just easy. So
Yeah,
it's just Connie Jakab for everything.
awesome. Okay, and your book, where can people get your books?
Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, awesome. Okay, go get some books from Connie Jakab, and thanks for coming again, Connie.
Oh, thank you, Chad.
Okay, take care.